All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Twin Speaks. This is episode number 9. Today we will be looking at season 2, episode 8, Drive with the Dead Girl, and season 2, episode 9, Arbitrary Law. Here we go.
You know how it is. There we go. There was a Drive with a Dead Girl. Obviously, directly alluded to Leland with Maddie's corpse. Not pleasant, but I guess the focus of this episode was um, Leland now seems to be oh now seems to be completely taken over by Bob. At least Bob's at the forefront. He's driving, so to speak. Um, and obviously the discovery of Maddie's body by the authorities at the end of the episode. And I guess the other main focus of the episode was everything that's going on with Benjamin Horn being, eventually charged with Laura's murder, and the revelation of Catherine still being alive and trying to leverage her support. He obviously wasn't happy about that. So yeah, take us away, Scotty, wherever you want to begin.
Yeah, I didn't actually have too many notes for this episode. It was pretty cut and dry, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I do like that it's after the big revelation in last episode, it was cleaning up
Yeah.
kind of the loose ends, dealing with that whole thing, and transitioning
Mm.
the story into what's to come next. So, um, that I did like the way this was done with this episode. Um, so first of all, I find it absolutely hilarious, and I didn't realize this, that Jerry had a law degree. Um, and he's representing
Only
his
just.
brother. Yeah, and came in dead last in his class and was debarred in 4 states, and yeah, that
Mm.
fits Jerry to a T. So I get
Right.
that, but and then he turns around and he goes, honestly, as your brother, get a better lawyer because I'm a piece
Yeah,
of shit. I'm not going to be able to
yeah.
actually defend you in this,
Right.
you know. Um,
Yeah, for all his bravado, uh, he's acutely aware of his own limitations. I found
right.
it interesting though that initially, uh, he he literally doesn't know whether his brother's guilty. He just comes out and asks Ben, Did you actually kill her?" And
Right.
Ben's like, "No, of course not, brother. Why are you even questioning me?" And Jerry's like, "Well, it's just testament to." He's like, "I know what you're like, Ben. If you had murdered some random girl for whatever reason, this wouldn't surprise me. And
Yeah.
I'm your brother. I don't care. I would still back you up and defend you. Doesn't matter to me." But
So
obviously,
so at the
Ben's offended by that idea.
yeah, so at the very least, he thinks he's capable of it,
Yeah, yeah,
which is a little bit
exactly.
telling because, I mean, if anybody knows what Ben is capable of, it would be his brother.
Mm,
Um, so, I mean, as far as that goes, Ben, for all of the evil that he represents in this story, um, I'm not apt to feel any sympathy for him, even if
yeah.
he is being wrongly accused in this situation,
Mm,
because it's like, six in one, half dozen in another.
right.
You're a piece of scum. So what difference does it make? And that's only highlighted by the fact that he throws a temper tantrum when
Mm,
he finds out that Catherine not double crossed him, she just got the better of him.
right.
You know,
Right. Yeah.
he's a lecherous criminal, and she was better at the game.
Mm,
You know,
right.
and he can't have that. He's not
No.
able to
Exactly.
emotionally handle it.
Yeah. For all of his intelligence, his business acumen, and you know, criminal underworld understanding of operations of things, um, he doesn't have the mental composure to when he's bested, he does, you know, degenerate down into a temper tantrum, because he's used to getting his way. He's used to having the upper hand. He's come to expect it. So when he doesn't, he's like, "What? Yeah, you got the better of me." That's exactly what you were trying to do to her, Ben. You were happy for her to die. you know, he's yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So it's hard to feel any sympathy for him, for sure.
right. Uh, but I did like that the reveal, you know, because
Mm,
at this point Pete knew that Catherine was alive at
yeah.
the end of the last episode, and it was very satisfying to have
Mm,
Pete go into the jail cell and play that tape for Ben,
definitely.
and he's cackling like a maniac, and um, yeah, just Pete is an awesome character
Yeah,
because not
agreed.
only is he good natured and uh, kind of aloof and just randomly cool as one. What I'm trying to search for a word, a descriptive for that. He's almost like a Mr. Magoo type,
Yeah.
where a little bit of a bumbling idiot, but he's so good-hearted that you
Mm,
can't help but feel for him. So
absolutely.
that was pretty cool to see that transitionary period from him mourning the loss of Catherine to buying a random Japanese businessman a glass of milk in the bar to finding out that's actually Catherine in disguise and telling her she looks terrible and now delivering this message from his wife that, oh, Ben, sorry, you did not actually get the upper hand in this treachery here. uh Sucks to be you, you know
Yeah.
and laughing about it.
Right. Yeah, and appropriately so. Because here's the thing: for everything that Ben Horn is, the majority of the townsfolk don't know about him. They don't know what he's
Right.
like. They're just like, oh, this is Benjamin Horn. He's the wealthiest man in town, business owner, owns the hotel. Respectable citizen. But obviously, the few that do know what he's about, yeah, if I was in Pete or Catherine's position, I would also be cackling madly at his demise.
Yeah. So part and parcel with that, of course, now is this revelation that on the night of Laura's murder, Catherine was with Ben in hotel, motel,
Mm,
or whatever,
yeah.
and she has that testimony
Mm,
to dangle in front of him, and he could use that to his benefit to stay out of jail, but it means signing the
mm,
mill bay. So it appears Catherine is holding all the cards, but I saw
yeah.
I saw this moment in the room where the interrogation room where they had Gerard sniffing around him and basically
Mm,
saying that Bob is not here.
yeah.
Um, I saw in that moment that Catherine's cards are not necessarily quite as full. That
Indeed.
that could have just as easily gone the route of, we don't have anything more pressing on you, so we're not going to actually press the charges and instead release Ben, which
Mm,
then kind of diminishes what Catherine had on him. her
absolutely.
whole her whole plan at this point is dependent on um, Ben having to use her testimony to stay out of jail. Okay, well, if
Mm,
that doesn't end up having to happen, well, she doesn't really have much of anything at that point. Just a
mm,
story that maybe isn't necessarily going to benefit anybody. So I found that kind of interesting. And then, no, Truman steps up and says, we're going to charge you. Wrongfully so,
yeah.
and that the audience knows, but,
Yeah. And
at least.
Cooper obviously suspects otherwise,
But I
but
mean, I saw at that
he
point,
backs down.
the Catherine's uh, plan waver a little bit and then come right back
Mm,
up just in the course of like 15, 20 seconds in that scene.
Mm.
And I found that kind of interesting. So let's see, what else do we have here? So yeah, that's Ben's alibi for the night. Now,
Mm.
I find it interesting that they seem to be positioning these two things between Leland giving false testimony at this point, probably that he was with Ben that night in a business meeting or something. He
Mm.
says Ben goes to take a phone call, gets heated discussion and something about a diary or dairy, you know,
Yeah.
and he's giving that to Cooper as if this is something to be used against Ben,
Yeah.
versus now uh, the truth is that he was with Catherine, then that would be his alibi if he were to use that um,
Yeah.
for the sole purpose of staying out of jail. But Cooper's going to have a hard time, I think, determining what the truth of the matter is here because it's
Mm.
so both sides are really tangled under this web of deceit. And
Mm.
what is he going to do to try to clear all that away to find the truth, at least on that part of it? I don't know. So
Indeed. But yeah, I think it's very well acted by Ray Wise in this episode, as he seems to do every time. But but if we jump to him a second, it clearly seems at this point that Bob is in complete control of Leland. Obviously, he knows how to operate and pass as Leland in real life. But it seems like if Leland's personality, who he actually is in there, at most he's just an observing passenger at this point, or he's completely out of it.
yeah, and I had a thought on that. Looking back at the character that Ray Wise portrayed from the beginning, you had this man who's a businessman, and he's a lawyer, and he's uh, living essentially the life of a nice prominent lawyer, going to
Mm.
work in these expensive suits, and he's got the real polished appearance and all that. And he finds out that his daughter has been murdered, and he breaks down. And it seems to me like what they were trying to portray with the character over time is he was so emotionally distraught that kind of opened the way for Bob to take over more and more.
Mm.
and
Yeah.
and he continued this transition, which we did not really see exactly what it was until the last episode. And
Mm.
now Bob is in full control,
Yeah.
but the signs were there all along.
Mm.
The things where emotionally Leland was trying to cope with this and failing, and it got
Mm.
worse and worse. And it seems to me that that's what allowed Bob to eventually take control. So I mean, even on a basic level of like split personalities, that rings
Mm.
true.
Yeah.
You have a problem with a personality, your main personality, emotionally dealing with things, and that breaks down, and there's kind of like this fade transition between the two
Yeah.
personalities, and then the other personality takes over. um,
Indeed.
so I thought that was very well done, and looking back on the episodes from the beginning, the transition was clearly
Mm.
present the whole time. We just didn't know what it
Yeah.
was.
Definitely. Absolutely. Yeah. I like that. It was well done. But it seems that Bob understands whatever. I guess that's the big question at the minute. What actually is he exactly? We know he's some
Yes.
kind of possessing spirit. We don't know, and that he's at least in human terms evil, because he enjoys mayhem and murder among other things. Um, he definitely seems to be enjoying the fact that he's in control. And he also seemed a little bit enjoys engaging in risky behavior. not only when he was swerving the car around the road while he's got a dead body in the trunk, but to the point where when he's even stopped by Cooper and Harry, he's like, "Oh, Agent Cooper, let me show you my golf clubs." He said, usually if you've got something in your trunk you don't want the police to see, you're not offering to open it up for them. But it's, what was Bob's plan if Cooper had gone, "Oh, that's nice. Oh, is that a dead body you have?"
Right.
It seemed like there seems to be something he gets out of that, maybe like that rush of adrenaline. But he was also seemed very happy, of course, in the hotel that Ben was implicated in the murder. It seemed like something that he had, something out of his control that there's no way he could have planned or foreseen. But obviously that allows, it obviously only works in his advantage that someone else gets blamed. So obviously he was pretty happy about that.
Yeah. And I would say that's pretty much the standard like psychopath response
Mm.
is,
Yeah.
you thrive on danger, you thrive on
Mm.
uh, you know, posing yourself as something that you're not, and then coming close to uh, being found out or something like that. The thrill of uh, danger or whatever else, and then on the other note, Ray Wise did an excellent job in that particular scene,
Mm.
especially the expression on his face and
Yeah.
the way in which he laughed. I was very much impressed by the emotional display put on by
Mm.
Ray Wise in that scene to
Absolutely.
exactly convey how Leland is feeling in that
Mm.
point, and that being Bob, really, having
Mm.
taken over, and how Bob is responding to this emotionally. The fact that he's essentially convinced Cooper at this point that Ben is on the hook, um,
Mm.
and it was very well done. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, essentially at this point now, Ray Wise is convincingly portraying a psychopathic murderer character, and doing
Mm.
so very well, to the point where you see a lot of little nuances in the
Mm.
performance, and this portrayal that really speaks to the depth of the character that Ray Wise has been building into it. So
Yeah,
I very much
definitely.
enjoyed that part of
Definitely.
it. So let's move on now to real briefly Bobby finding
Yeah.
out he's got the evidence now that Ben hired Leo for arson.
Mm.
He's gonna attempt to try and blackmail Ben with this
Yeah.
information,
Presumably, yeah.
presumably, but I don't think Bobby has
He's
nearly
up
enough
to it.
brains to pull anything off there. Yeah, he's just a moron.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Remember when we were talking about Bobby having a redemption story, and I was like, yeah, no, that shouldn't
You
happen.
don't want it. And
Thankfully, it
it's
doesn't appear to be happening at this point. He's still scum, and he's still, but he's the idiotic scum criminal. He's just like, oh, here's a way I can make money, but I haven't
yeah.
thought of everything.
Yeah. He's not the unrepentant scum of such, types of Ben Horn and Leo Johnson. He's the bumbling idiot scum
Right.
who, with his own ineptitude, may cause less harm. Like, if Bobby was smart, my God,
I mean,
now
at
the
this
bad guy.
point, yeah, at this point, he's almost comic relief, because it's
Almost, yeah.
like, the way he's being portrayed, he's always got that wild eye look, like,
Mm,
oh, I can
yeah,
exploit this thing over here, and then it just doesn't
yeah,
quite work out.
mm,
So I mean,
totally.
yeah, his character is almost getting to the point of comic relief, and fucking poor Shelley being dragged along because she wants to see good in him, and she's
Mm.
still attracted to him, and for some stupid reason, like I don't know, poor Shelley.
Yeah,
Hopefully she comes out of that okay.
yeah. Let's
And
hope so, Scotty, because I know you like Shelley, and she is a sweetheart. Any of minor bad behaviors of her through the series have just been because of all the bullshit and
yeah,
literal physical abuse and literal attempted murder she's suffered.
right.
Um, so I think we can forgive her. Um,
Yeah.
a couple of little things we've got. Pete confined in Harry that he, based on the wording of what he said, essentially he had a thing for Josie. And I think if you look back over the previous scenes, it wasn't just like, he was like, "Oh, come do the fishing competition with me, Josie." And obviously because his marriage with Catherine had broken down, and he's an older guy, and he probably wasn't under any illusion that Josie had any interest in him, and he probably wasn't under any illusion that he was probably well aware of Josie and Harry's relationship. But we've all been there. You a guy, you have a romantic interest in someone, and they don't have any interest in you, and that nothing's going to come of it, but it's the feelings, the affection is still there. Um, and so bless him, and obviously Harry took it in stride. But obviously they linked up the fact that cousin Jonathan and Mr. Lee, they were like, okay. They obviously both know, at least certainly Harry, that something wasn't quite right, but now they both know, and
Well, and
you know,
and and see, there's a solid, trusted relationship between Pete
mm,
and Harry. I mean, they
yeah,
they are they're good. There's nothing I don't think that
mm,
could really come between them. Which
100%.
now then there's three parts to this. Okay, so you got Pete and Harry's relationship. Now that Josie is gone, and I'm sure Josie will come back into it at some point, but um, Pete losing Catherine in his mind and then regaining her back, and then the glee that he's able
Mm,
to, lord this entire scenario over Ben.
yeah,
Pete and Catherine are good again.
yeah,
And I can clearly see that just in the last episode their entire marriage has essentially been repaired. Everything
yeah,
that came to pass before, where they were, they had fallen out and they kind of hated each other. I mean, he didn't really hate her, but
no,
he was kind of like, okay, if that's the way you want to be, then that's the way we'll be. But
yeah,
at the same time, it's like all of that is in the past now, and
mm,
they almost have this newfound respect and love for each other that it has almost instantaneously repaired all of the damage, and now they are solid. So
yeah,
the third part of that, in my mind, is now Catherine and Truman are
mm,
solid because of this Pete connection, and
yeah,
there's going to be some kind of thing in my mind where Catherine is now fully on the good side, being in solid
mm,
with Pete and Pete being in solid with
yeah,
Truman. So therefore, Catherine is going to be able to uh, utilize any of the information at her disposal to help this good side.
mm,
So I'm looking
indeed.
forward to see what kind of relation, not necessarily relationship, but the storyline that develops more fully now between Catherine and Truman.
Yeah, yeah, indeed.
So
We should have to wait and see. We get to see Audrey in one brief scene towards the end of the episode.
poor Andy.
Where she. Oh, so no, sorry, Audrey. I said. Oh
Oh,
yeah.
Audrey.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
we'll get
Yeah,
to Andy in a minute. Sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, Audrey. Well, yeah, we saw Andy in it. We'll get into him in a second. Yeah, Audrey. She confides in Cooper that rightly so. We could have suspected this, but obviously she's finally putting an actual voice to it. All she ever wanted was her father to give a shit about her. What? Of course, any little girl wants their father to care about them, and obviously she's grown up with the pretense of his love, the
Right.
pretense of his care. Um,
Which we formerly had discussed that that's
Mm.
probably why she was so precocious. Her
Yeah, yeah,
father didn't pay her any attention, so she
yeah,
did anything and everything she could to gain his attention, which just
yeah.
made her insufferable. And
Mm.
now she's finally starting to get to the point, and maybe that's just like a coming of age tale
Mm.
where Audrey is finally realizing, oh, maybe I just don't need his approval or his
Yeah,
attention or anything else.
exactly.
Let's start to move on with my life and be a real person now.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, the other thing in the scene, she's again, she'd tried to mention it before to Cooper, insistent on telling Coop that look, nothing happened at One Eyed Jack's, as in presumably sexually. Uh, and he's like, no, it's fine. I understand. And she's like, no, it's very important because obviously, even after everything's gone, she's still got a thing for Cooper.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah. So she's like, obviously he's previously shut her down. But obviously, a lot of stuff has happened since then.
Oh,
Um,
I can definitely see like the cracks in Cooper shutting her down. Like
mm,
he's got his own affection for her now. That doesn't
yeah,
necessarily
definitely.
lend itself to sexual, but you know, he's clearly got an affection for her, which
Yeah.
I could see at this point by
Mm,
the end of the series, Cooper and Audrey ending up together.
we shall see.
Yeah, we shall see.
Yeah. But yes, jumping over to Andy. Yeah. Bless Andy. He's a good guy.
He
I like
is.
him.
He's a good
But
soul, but you know,
yeah. So yeah, obviously when he walked in and he saw Lucy with a baby, I mean, I don't think he's silly enough to think that that was Lucy's baby. I think he understands basic biology to some degree. Then again, this is
uh,
Andy we're talking about. I think he was
yeah.
just, I
I
don't know.
mean, him passing out at that point.
Yeah, I don't know. I interpret it as the kind of the direct visual representation of what Lucy having a baby would appear like, and he was like, "Oh my god, this is like I've never really thought of or seen Lucy in this light before as a mother."
Right.
And for whether it was a positive or a negative reaction, that thought was like so overwhelming to him that he took a actually fainted. Bless him.
Ah, boy. But
But then of course, sorry.
well, Lucy's sister is a trip. I mean,
Oh my god, Gwen.
she's like Lucy. Gwen is like Lucy, but more
Without the sweetness.
antagonistic
Yeah.
and more obnoxious.
Mm,
Yeah, without the sweetness is probably the best way to describe that. But I mean, you can tell that they went to great lengths to try to make those personalities kind of the same, with the same look, the same hair, and the
yeah.
same kind of nasally voice and all that. I don't think we're going to see a lot of Gwen
No.
in the future. It was just kind of like a thing that was brought up to make this point in this storyline of
Yeah.
the motherhood aspect between Lucy and Andy. But that was rather interesting, because not only do you get to see the relationship between Lucy and Gwen, you also get to see the ability of both Lucy and Andy to shut down somebody
Yeah.
who's going too far, crossing a
Yeah.
line when it comes to
Mm,
their relationship. And yeah, it was cool to see Andy tell Gwen to shut up. Lucy, I could have expected that, but great for Andy for
yeah.
going that extra mile and saying, okay, yeah, you crossed the line and that's not
Yeah.
acceptable.
Please shut up now.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously, and the revelation for Lucy is like, oh, so Andy isn't infertile, therefore I don't know who the father of this baby is.
Yeah. Time to go on Maury
Well,
Povich.
yeah. So the final thing I've got is, and they give a reasonable amount of time to this in the episode, was Norma's mother Vivian turning up out of nowhere with her brand new husband Ernie, who also seemingly is unbeknownst to them, is an associate of Hank's from prison.
Right.
Ernie's claiming that, he's like, I'm on the straight and narrow now. There's no schemes. I am genuinely in love with Norma's mother. We are married, and I don't want any of nonsense you may be proposing, Hank. But is Hank going to try and spin this to his advantage some way? He kind of hinted at that.
Yeah, but it's like, okay, this is Norma essentially being in the same place as Shelley, and kind of allowing herself, whether she intends to or not, to be taken advantage of by characters, and it appears that her mom is the same way, and maybe this is where she learned that behavior. So either way, we have not discussed in many episodes now the relationship between Ed and Norma. So if there is to be some kind of conflict resolution there between Ed, Nadine, Norma, and Hank, it's going to have to come at the behest of Norma figuring her shit out and scraping off the dead weight and realizing what this actually is. And I don't know that she's really ready to do that anytime soon.
No, unfortunately not.
So we'll see. The only other thing I
got
had,
anything else?
The only other thing I had is Gerard knocking out the deputy to leave the hotel room, and Hawk brings him back, and I was a bit confused by that. I don't understand what Gerard's role in all of this is, aside from being like a pointer dog to try to sniff out Bob. Maybe
that's seemingly it, yeah.
Maybe he's going to be useful in that regard ultimately. But either way, it seems like he's becoming more trouble than he's worth. And I'm not so sure that he is representing himself genuinely to Truman and Cooper. What is his motive in all of this? And if he's hiding this ulterior motive, that would maybe be represented by him knocking out the cop and leaving when he, was supposed to be in custody for whatever purpose here. And you also see, it was interesting for me to see when he was waking up in the bed from whatever, the stupor was from last episode, him flexing the shoulder of the missing arm.
Yeah.
And that, in my mind, that was representative of something. I just haven't figured out what, if anything, yet.
Yeah.
But I think we're finding out now that there's an ulterior motive to Gerard that we have not seen.
Indeed.
So, that's it.
Excellent. Just one last thing I want to mention. Ryan, he's headed off now, but he questioned the lasagna and milk combo on the nightstand in Coop's room. I think he may have missaw. I don't know if it looked like lasagna to you, Scotty. I think it was supposed to be cherry pie. I think it was just quite messy. I think that's what it was.
Either way, I'll drink milk with Italian, pasta or anything all the time. So
yeah, I mean,
I don't know what the problem is.
I'm not a milk fan, but I'm not somebody who is too concerned about what you're eating at what time of day. I'm like, I'll lasagna, cherry pie, whatever before bed. That's fine. Maybe that's just me.
Right.
But okay, guys, let me just get set up here for our next episode. Right, sorry about that, fellas. Well, there we go. That was episode 9, Arbitrary Law. Pretty intense episode. Although I guess it's in a lot of ways it's brought us to a lot of resolution with a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I would sum that up as very satisfying.
Yeah, excellent. I'm glad you enjoyed it. There's very much the sense that however long it's taken us, we have finally reached the conclusion of the first chapter of the overall story, shall we say?
Yeah.
Obviously, we start with the mystery of Laura Palmer's murder, and now it's revealed who is responsible. Whether we're taking, whether you interpret as the fully scientific, forensic, the concept of, it was her father is now dead, or presumably, I guess it isn't really specific. Yeah, he clearly died in that end scene there.
Yeah.
Or the idea of this unknown entity by the name of Bob. We've thoroughly concluded the first part of the saga, shall we say? Yeah, where do you want to start, Sky? I guess the
I
main focus was everything with Leland, wasn't it?
yeah, there was a
Pretty
lot there.
intense.
However, I think we can pretty succinctly discuss everything that happened in that episode, but I wanna get all the little side things out of the way first.
Yeah, absolutely. Please do.
So first of all, Donna and James.
Mm.
They at the beginning of the episode they were back to good, cooing at each other, staring at each other, holding
Yeah.
hands.
Better
He
than they'd
produ-
ever been, arguably.
yeah, he produces a ring, and oh my
Mm.
god, James, I love you. And yeah, they're good. And by the end of the episode, they're torn apart again, primarily because it seemed James is looking at a scenario in which he doesn't really understand what is going on in the world around him,
Mm.
and either way, this revelation of the knowledge that Maddie was murdered leads him to a place where he can't handle anything. So
Yeah.
the relationship that was there all along with Donna,
Mm.
he's just not able to deal with it at this point. I can see James. I've seen that kind of personality type before, where they just back off from everything, and they go,
Yeah.
I don't care what it is, and he ends up hurting Donna again in that capacity of his
Yeah.
inability to deal with the situation.
Yeah.
So interesting back and forth between them, and how his love for Donna is there, but it almost seems like and obviously Maddie dying is not the slightest thing, but it seems like the slightest thing can cause him to not be there, and not being able to give her the love that she wants. So
Mm.
then it almost falls to Donna to decide whether or not she still wants to deal with James in that capacity, with this flaw in his character. Um,
Mm.
Either way, I mean, they're obviously going to explore that a little bit more in coming episodes, but it doesn't seem to bode well for James at this point.
No.
And Donna's just kind of like left by the wayside in that.
Mm.
Norma and her mom, who is apparently, you know what? It literally just occurred to me 2 seconds ago. What if Donna's mom is the food critic? The way she was criticizing the omelet there.
Yeah,
Maybe she is, maybe
indeed.
she isn't. Either way, but yeah, I found that and Donna just, or not Donna, Norma, she reacts in the capacity of, you have been negatively criticizing me my whole life. Nothing has ever been
Yeah.
good enough for you. And you can see that in the way that Norma's mom, talks to her. It's always literally this criticizing capacity. Well, you could produce a better omelet by doing this and this and that. No, the
Yeah.
omelet's fine. Shut up.
Yeah.
And Norma, God bless her, she deals with it in the best way that she can, or like any child dealing with a constantly critical parent deals with that sort of thing. Which is, okay, Mom, thanks. You're no help. I'm just going to continue doing what I'm doing because I know I'm doing a decent job here. But clearly
Yeah, totally.
that's not not something Norma is taking in the best way. It's taking her
Yeah,
toll on her, just like Hank is taking her toll, taking a
definitely.
toll on her. So yeah, Andy and Dick, not Andy Dick, Andy and
Mhm.
Dick and Lucy, now it has formed into a solid love triangle,
Yep.
and I did like to see Lucy take charge in that scene and say, you know
Yeah.
what, guys, I don't give a shit what you're doing, who the father is. You're both going to man the fuck up right now,
Yeah.
and until
Yeah.
this baby is born and we determine who the actual father is, enough bullshit. You know,
Yeah. It could be either of you, so start acting like it.
right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Which
totally.
I Andy is going to man up. He's going
Mm.
to be the knight in shining armor, or at least the chivalrous man that Lucy needs. It's going to take him
Yeah.
time, but he will get there. Dick is
Mm.
going to continue to be a dick and deteriorate, and you know. So I see at
Right.
some point, the resolution being Andy is the father and he is going to man up, and Dick will finally be out of the picture and
Yeah.
Lucy will be rid of
Or
him.
yeah. Or even if it is actually Dick's child, and he will man up and take the
Right.
responsibility of
Oh
being the
yeah.
father to it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. It is Dick's
Mm,
baby, but he's going to be like, "Oh, well, have a good life, bye."
mm,
And then Andy
yeah,
steps up too. So, either way, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So
Let's
so
hope for that.
it'll be again almost, almost like this is literally the second most important plot directly behind the main plot of what happened to Laura, because you see just this tiny little thread of a story woven throughout the whole thing, and
Mm,
you want to know what happens next
yeah,
between
totally.
specifically Andy and Lucy. But I mean,
Mm,
now we got the full love triangle thing going on. So excellent excellent weaving of this thread throughout the whole story. And
yeah, definitely. Yes, it's such a
um
relatively minor thing, but to keep it going from the start and constantly keep it ticking over,
yeah,
yeah, you're invested in it. Yeah, definitely.
yeah. um Catherine going to the jail and revealing herself to Ben, um
Mm,
gets the signature on the paper and leaves him
mm,
hanging. Well, okay, so Catherine is still holding all the cards, but now at the resolution of this episode, Ben
yeah,
is likely going to be released. So now again,
right,
her
exactly.
cards are in jeopardy. Um,
Mm.
so
Ben's going to be coming after those signed papers, sharpish.
right. So I've seen this flip now, I think two, maybe three times
Mm,
between does Catherine have all the cards or she doesn't, or Ben just has a better hand. So it almost seems like, and maybe this is like 4 to 5 times throughout the whole series now, this constant flip between who has the better hand between Catherine and Ben, and we don't know because it really depends on what ultimately happens to the characters outside of their relationship with each other. Um,
yeah,
so that really adds a very interesting um, point of discussion, I guess, for interpreting everything that's going on between Catherine and Ben, which is now heightening itself in the storyline and saying, okay, just like it did, 5, 6, 7 episodes ago with Lucy and Andy. Now we're seeing this as a main emerging storyline. What is going to happen? Who's going to ultimately come out on top between Catherine and Ben?
indeed.
So that's about it for all the side stuff, I think.
Yeah, isn't it? There wasn't really much of it compared to the previous episode.
No, but and I get that because they really wanted to
Yeah.
focus on this, the main point, which is the resolution to the first part of the storyline.
Yeah.
Um, letter O found under Maddie's fingernail, and
Yep.
hairs from the taxidermy fox in Ben's office. At first, that would
Mm.
appear to point more fingers towards
Implicate Ben.
Ben.
Yeah, including the phone call made from his office to Laura
Yeah,
late that night. Turns out that, obviously we saw Leland a couple of episodes get the white fox first. So, so I wonder if if he took that on purpose. Same with the phone call. Was it part of Bob's plan? He's like, well, I'm doing all these awful things. Maybe I'll plant little crumbs, little seeds that could potentially
yeah.
assist me later on. Or is he thinking that cleverly, or is he?
I don't know.
Who can say?
I don't know, but I'm apt to believe, based on the reaction of Bob in Ben's office when he's brushing the fox, and then he takes the hairs and
Mm,
he's like, "Oh, I'll put these in my pocket." Maybe,
yeah.
maybe that was
Mm,
him, planning ahead and trying to use that to
yeah.
help frame Ben. But I'd also think it was more along the lines of just sheer, not incompetency, but um, almost like sheer luck that it's
Mm,
now going further and further against Ben just because. Just
yeah.
because Leland happened to have, the hairs of the fox on him, and that then transmitted to the body. Maybe it
Mm,
was pre-planned, maybe it wasn't, but I'm leaning more
yeah.
towards that it wasn't. And that's
Yeah.
just like sheer bad luck on Ben's part.
Mm, yeah.
But
Definitely.
clearly, there was a connection there. Um, the the interesting thing I think about Mike, because we were discussing about how, or at least I was, about how maybe
Mm,
there's this ulterior motive. Mike comes off as, I mean, he initially was trying to portray himself as like a freedom fighter almost, who's
yeah.
fighting against this evil force. He was one of them, and he saw, and he didn't want to be that anymore, and now he's doing this. But he also does not seem to have Cooper's best interest at heart. Like in this
Mm,
in this conversation they had when he's in bed, is him giving Cooper some information, and that turned out to be okay, but like there's something else going on with Mike. I can't figure it out
yeah.
yet. He's not all that he seems to be, with, or at least as he presents himself, and that's definitely going to have, I think, some negative impact on Cooper at some point.
Mm,
Um, so I'll have to see. But
yeah.
at the very least, in this case, it seemed like the information panned out. He, said you have to ask the giant for help in finding Bob. So now I wanted to comment specifically on this. When it came to this scene in the bar
Mm,
where it was, rainy and lightning strikes outside again to make, present this atmosphere. We've got all these guys in here. Uh, I'm assuming at this point that David Lynch meant to do this specifically, and that is to create the classic detective scene: someone in this room
mm,
is a killer.
yeah.
And
Definitely.
great, okay, he pulled that off, but also laid on thick the David Lynch style of mystery and misdirection
Mm,
and all sorts of other things. Uh, found it extremely interesting of the people who he chose to have in the bar at that time. Okay,
mm,
maybe it was Leo, but Leo's a vegetable at the moment,
yeah.
and Bobby is there as his caretaker, and
Mm,
Bobby's dad, Major Briggs, bringing
mm,
in the old man. and all of
Yeah.
these other things coming into play. Okay, the scene was well done, but I found it really interesting that this thing with the gum. So clearly
Mm,
Leland, or Bob was
mm,
chewing the gum, and that's got something very specific to do with the personality. Maybe Leland wouldn't chew this gum, but then all of a sudden the old man offers the stick of gum to Cooper,
mm,
and this apparently is the gum that is relevant to Bob, and
mm,
something else going on there. So the question that was raised in my mind at that moment is, what is the gum? What is in the gum? Why is the old man giving a stick to Cooper?
mm.
And what is the relevance to a whole bunch of other shit that's been going on, like the hospital food and, you know,
um,
so
a lot
more
of it,
mystery upon mystery, but it's
yeah,
almost
of
like
course,
you
it
can
never
see the
ends.
connections, but it's all hazy,
Yeah,
you
yeah, I
know?
think that's very definitely intentional. I can't speak on the hospital food at the moment, but in terms of the gum, the first time we hear about the chewing gum is I believe in Cooper's dream, where it's the little man, the man from another place, says to him, "Oh, that gum you like is coming back in style." And at the time, Cooper's like, "That does what does that even mean?" Um, I think that is essentially just a clue um, for that potentially that precise moment in time um, to clue. I guess he's getting the revelation specifically because by conducting this magic ceremony, where he essentially forces himself to remember what Laura said to him in his dream, that her father has killed her. Um, it's another clue, I guess. It's the gum. All right, Leland's reacting to that. He's commenting on that. I think that is all it is. I don't think there's anything
Okay.
special about it, but specifically, it's a very a very early clue that you're pondering over, thinking there may be more significance to it than there actually is.
Yeah,
It's
well, and the reason I feel that way is because this old man
mm,
does not appear to be human.
mm,
I would venture at this point that there are opposing entities
mm,
that Bob represents the evil side, and maybe Mikey represents the good side, or whoever the
mm,
old man is represents the good side. And that maybe makes sense on the level of he presented the gum to Cooper to help him make that final connection and remember Laura's words in the dream. But I could have
mm,
just as easily chalked that up to Cooper set this whole thing up, and regardless of whether the gum was a catalyst or not, he then asked, for lack of a better term, the tall man to help him, and the tall man
mm,
returned his ring at that point, and he then remembered Laura's words. So maybe that was more or less the tall man
yeah,
being the catalyst, because
mm,
Cooper finally realized from Mike's words that he needed to ask for his help in that regard.
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah,
Either way, I found it interesting that was a detail that was inserted there.
yeah.
Um,
Well, the old fellow was not supposed to be there at that meeting. I assume that Major Briggs was invited, but he just happened to pick him up along the way and asked to be taken there. Um, Now, if we consider the fact that we have this entity called Bob, who is a possessing spirit who was possessing Leland Palmer, seemingly since he was a child, um, and we have this entity by the name of Mike, who was formerly an associate of Bob's and now considers himself Bob's enemy, nemesis,
yeah,
pursuer. who is possessing the one-armed shoe salesman, Philip Gerard. It would almost stand to reason if there's two of a thing, there may be more of the same thing.
Yes.
What other potential? Maybe this thing's still yet to be revealed. But we have seen the big man, the tall man, the giant, who has been attempting to assist Cooper up to this point. If we were to posit that he is also some kind of spirit entity, maybe very similar but distinct and very different, or they're very different to Bob and Mike. And we've also seen the little man, potentially either or one of them is also in possession of another human individual.
Right.
We'll have to see.
At the very least, it seems like the tall man and the old man are working in tandem, because they appeared together in the previous bar scene, and now they've appeared together in this bar scene. And maybe the old man was not supposed to be there, but he showed up anyway as like a precursor to the tall man appearing.
Yeah.
So I would tend to believe that they're on the same side, with the assistance of these revelations to Cooper to help solve this mystery. And
yeah,
that would also tend to lead me to believe that they're on the good side, that whatever these entities are, they are determined to help Cooper stop Bob. But it also strikes me that if they have the capacity to inhabit human bodies like this, what is their role in attempting to stop Bob? What have they actually done themselves, aside from mysteriously appear to Cooper to help Cooper try to defeat Bob?
Indeed.
It's almost
seemingly not much else.
Yeah, almost like, well, what the fuck have you done about this? Aside from making this very cryptic.
We're going to pick out this one weirdo FBI agent and give him really weird cryptic dreams and messages, and that will be our contribution.
Right.
It seems like it. But yeah, I guess we can. I can reveal, and again, from this point onwards, almost everything in regards to this, the core mystery of the weirdness of these spirit entities, is open to interpretation, and Lynch is going to take us deep in that direction, for sure, as we progress.
Which lends itself, at the very least, that means that I was absolutely right. That I think I commented like 2 or 3 episodes ago that we were about to see a resolution to this mystery thus far, and it's going to lead on to a much bigger mystery, which we'll discuss that here a bit more at the end. But it's nice to know that I was on the right track.
I remember you saying it, and I was like trying not to react visually. I was like, yeah, he's got it. He's got it. Of course he has, because he's got it.
I just have to ignore all your little mouth twerks and everything else, so you don't give anything else away to me.
I'll try to keep them under control, but to my interpretation, at least, you're absolutely right. There are these spirit entities. There's Bob, at least, who, for his own gratification or whatever his reasons are, enjoys fear and pain and suffering of human beings. That is like sustenance to him, or just good fun. And Mike was also there with him previously, and now Mike has had a change of heart and is trying to stop him. And there are other spirit entities potentially who who are against that idea. So if they have the similarity, at least in how they can communicate and possess human beings, against their will sometimes, or it's my interpretation. I think it's generally agreed upon that the giant, it being one of these spirit entities, is essentially possessing that old guy. So that's why we've seen him around in the same
Oh,
scenes. Yeah, yeah. And that's the significance of him. He's not just what's the weird old
okay.
guy doing here? It's because he is the vessel for the giant, essentially.
Gotcha. Okay.
Um,
See that that
yeah,
that
so,
yeah that that makes a lot of sense. No, yeah,
yeah, doesn't
I'm
it?
over
Doesn't it?
here. Like okay, so I can see this thing happening. With the way that Lynch is weaving the storyline a couple of episodes ago, but then it comes to that, and I'm like, hmm, seems like the tall guy and the old guy are working in tandem. No, they're the same
Yeah,
motherfucker.
essentially. Now, I'm given to believe that the human, because we don't even have a name for him, he's just the guy, the old fella who
Yeah.
works at the hotel, um, is either completely unaware of the giant, or he's only like vaguely aware. He is just literally a vessel for good, and
I
maybe
mean,
he was chosen by the giant because he's innocuous. He's he is a generally good natured human being. So
well, well,
the
well,
giant's like,
let's
that gold is appropriate.
Well, let's think back. Okay, the first time Cooper met him, he was standing over him while he had a gunshot wound going, "Are you going to get the phone?"
Yeah,
So maybe the simple fact of the matter is that this guy was
doesn't have much
actually,
going
as he
on.
was presented,
Mm,
addle-brained, and
mm,
as opposed to Leland, who was made to forget, or at
yeah,
times was not aware of what Bob was doing in his
right.
body. Maybe this old man is just so addle-brained he doesn't notice, or he's aware of it
Yeah,
and he's okay with it, or something like that.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so
Yeah,
so
so entities like Bob who are evil will possess somebody, not give a shit, control them, use them, do whatever they want. Whereas an entity like the giant is, I really need to possess somebody, but let me be careful in who I choose,
yeah,
and someone who's going to do the not only the least amount of damage, but the least amount of interference.
right,
It certainly seems as though that gentleman is not suffering any consequence of being inhabited by the giant. And
right.
but that is the reason he is always around. That is the reason he's you know uh he's present for all these situations. um Now, of course, you going back to your question of, well, why is the giant not helping more? We'll have to wait and see. Maybe there's reasons for that. Maybe the best he can do is drop hints about chewing gum and and
Hmm.
owls and things, and Cooper's just got to try and do the best he can with that. But
Right.
we'll have to see.
All right. So let's jump back now at this point in our lead into the main event here. Um, Mrs. Tremond that Donna had
Mm,
previously visited, with the Meals on Wheels, with the frickin' creepy ass magician kid and his
mm,
creamed corn. So I don't necessarily know what to make of that. It almost seems like at this point Donna was hallucinating or being
mm,
given a vision, because she not only did she not have any memory of the real Mrs. Tremond. uh, the real Mrs. Tremond said her mom had passed away 3 years ago, and I'm going to assume at this point that what Donna saw was like a vision of her mom.
yeah.
And I also want to guess at this point that the grandchild, was more or less like an entity that would
Mm,
visit the Mrs. Tremond's mom, and is somehow involved with that. But this wasn't Donna like actually meeting with Mrs. Tremond's mom.
right.
It was some kind of vision, some kind of uh like
Experience. Yeah.
yeah, experience, being inserted into a representation or something like that. And that led her to Harold, who at this point it seems just kind of like got caught up in Laura's bullshit.
Mm,
There still may be something else going on with Harold, but it seems like he was just like a victim of circumstance and kind of got caught up with everything that was happening to Laura at the time.
mm,
Um, so when Donna makes this connection that uh, she then goes and tells Cooper and Truman about it, and they head to Mrs. Treeman's house. Okay, so they recover this page from the secret diary, and this was a little bit of a surprise to me, and that
mm,
was that not only did Laura know of Bob in possession of her father, that she was actively trying to get away from that, and then finally we get a resolution to the line of why Donna wanted to die. And that was because revealed as because it was the only way to escape and be out of the scope of Bob and what he represented.
mm.
And then even further, the revelation a little bit later that the entity that or what Bob represents, there are maybe other entities and probably other
Mm,
entities that are attempting to do what Bob is doing, possessing
mm,
humans for the intent to spread evil, be evil, commit murders, do whatever. And um, Laura was a candidate for
yeah,
that. And she was strong-minded and she resisted them. So the revelation that the reason Laura wanted to die was so that she would not be a slave to these
mm,
entities and be taken over is almost like a lifting of a weight off of the chest of the listener, the audience,
yeah,
because you in that moment you completely define what Laura was and who she was and why she
yeah,
was. She was definitely on the side of good, but doing
yeah,
her best to battle the evil that was facing her
mm,
in the best way that she could, which ultimately meant I'm going to die or commit suicide or do something to prevent myself from becoming this evil or
mm,
being a host to the evil, which is the most altruistic form there is,
mm,
sacrificing yourself in order to
yeah,
prevent the spread of evil. Um, so clearly, everything that was presented in Laura, from being homecoming queen and being involved in all these good things to having this secret life where she was involved with drugs and prostitution and wanting to be around dangerous men and all of this, that now has been cleared
mm,
up and her name completely um, what's cleared her
yeah,
her good name cleared of everything that was there, that ultimately, no matter what else was going on in her life as she battled this, she was still on the side of good and did not give in to
yeah,
this evil.
yeah. To finally get that revelation
Right.
is we get to we I guess we thought we knew everything about Laura, not everything, but we knew a lot about her as an individual up to this point, but we didn't have this final revelation that actually uh she was far more of a hero than we were actually being led to being made aware of up until this point.
Right.
Fascinating book as a little aside here. Oh, there we go. Sorry. Uh, the Laura Palmer's Secret Diary is an actual book.
Really?
Um,
Wow.
yes, I mean, I'm not saying like run out and buy books, but actually written by Jennifer Lynch, uh, the daughter of David Lynch. It's like supposed to be her actual secret diary, the
Wow.
actual complete document that Harold Smith had. Very interesting reading. Obviously, if you'd read it before we got to this point in the story, you'd have far too many spoilers.
Well,
And
yeah, but I'll tell you what though, after we're done with the series, that would be a book that I
Mm.
would want to be seeking out as an addendum to fill in the gaps and go back and go,
Yeah, it's very
aha,
well written. Yeah,
yeah,
I do recommend it. It's not that long because obviously it's just her diary, but it fills in a lot of the background. My recommendation would be if you were inclined, I'm sure it's not that expensive, but if you were inclined to read it, Sky, would be after the movie before we start season 3. I don't think you'd get too many spoilers if you were to, if for example, you read it right now, because we already have the revelation of Bob and her father and everything at this point. But
so
yeah, I would feel that would be the time to read it.
well, let me ask you this though. Would it diminish anything by waiting until after the third season?
No, I think it would. Yeah, I think it would be better to. No, it would. I don't think it'd diminish anything. No, no, not
Okay.
all. I mean, there's other books. We've got the uh this hefty tome, The Secret History of Twin Peaks, gigantic book, uh,
Nice.
which goes deep into the whole history of the town,
Right.
and all sorts of things. And then there's another one, not quite as hefty, The Final Dossier.
Okay.
Uh, very interesting. But in terms of reading, the Secret History and Laura's Palmer Secret Diary should be read ideally certainly after the movie and potentially before season 3. But the Final Dossier should definitely be read after the final
Right.
season.
No, no, I
If
think
you were to just wait till we've wrapped everything up,
yeah, I
and then
think that's what
read any reading materials at the very end, you're not missing out on anything.
yeah, I think
It'll just
that's what I
only add
want to
to it.
do because
Yeah,
I mean I am fully invested in this series now,
yeah, yeah,
so it's all your goddamn fault. And
yeah. Sorry about that.
yeah, but I do, you know, when I get invested in something, I do definitely want to, you know, get some
Yeah,
follow-up
yeah,
material or you know
yeah, definitely.
continuations of the story. So at the very least, I think the Secret History of Twin Peaks, which there's another part to this at the end that I was going to
Mm,
discuss. That leads into that, I'm sure, and the Secret Diary definitely would be addendum material that I would want to
yeah,
consider to fill in all the rest of the gaps. But I personally would think I would prefer to do that until after the completion
yeah,
of the main part of it that was, you know, video televised. Um,
yeah. Makes
because
sense.
to me that feels like the main part of the story as it was presented to the most people, and
Yeah.
when you finally get to whatever resolution is available at the end of season 3, at the complete end of that, then
Mm,
anything else is the thing that you want to go back and even
it's
to the
extra.
point
Yeah,
where, you know, I would then maybe want to purchase the books and then go back and watch the series again,
yeah. Again, to
do
see.
this and
Yes,
this and this,
absolutely.
and then stop and read this portion of the book, you know, and then
Yeah, yeah,
continue on like that and run them in tandem
absolutely.
to in order to get the full picture.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. No, I totally, I understand where you're coming from, and with scheduling as well. If we're not planning to take any Saturdays off until completion,
Yeah.
then we're gonna be, we're busy
It'll
anyway,
be in
and
the
I'm sure
summer.
you've
I
got.
I think I'll mention it now. I think at the end of April I do need to take a few Saturdays off
Oh,
with
cool. Yeah,
something
of
new
course,
that
man.
is occurring in my life, but I don't know, and I'll let you know as soon. We may be able to continue on every Saturday as we have anyway, but
Yeah,
either way, you know, I'll
yeah,
let
yeah.
you
Just let me know nearer the time, buddy. But yeah, jumping back to the episode, I've only got a couple of things. What you alluded to, of course, in Leland's death scene. Obviously, we have the resolution that seemingly Bob has uh, uh, gone out of his way to kill Leland, as he said he would. He's done with this vessel.
know.
Good vehicle, Leland, but you're full of holes now. See you later. Um, he does reveal that what we found out about Laura, that they were trying to possess her. But he's not saying him. He's not saying Bob. He's saying them. Now, is he referring to Mike as well? I know you've got your suspicions about Mike, or are there other entities who are maybe not at the fore or as powerful as Bob, but believe in his ideals and want to help or aspire to be like him. That we'll have to wait and see.
So
Uh,
on that note, did you ever see Monsters Incorporated, the Pixar movie?
yes, I have. It's been very many years since I've seen it, so I can't
So,
remember too much about it.
well, that's all right. But the premise is monsters go through magic
Mm,
doors into children's rooms to scare them at
yeah,
night because then they collect fear and that powers their world, right?
right.
And then later in the movie, they find spoilers if you've not seen Monsters Incorporated, even though I don't give a shit.
Okay.
Is that they later find out that laughter is a much more energetic,
Mm,
worth far more energy, three, four, five
yeah, yeah,
times as much as fear. And then they go in and they start making the kids laugh. But
yeah, yeah.
I thought of that when it
Mm,
came to the reference of Bob saying that there were others and they were trying to essentially inhabit more humans,
mm,
because what is it that Bob gets out of the scenario? He goes to
mm,
murder an innocent young woman. What does he get out of that? Well, maybe we could say on a human level that psychopaths get enjoyment, they get a thrill out of doing something that's maybe
mm,
taboo or wrong or morally bankrupt, or the power and control that comes with taking a
yeah,
life, or enjoyment of torture, or any of those things that come into play for psychopaths. But what does Bob and a non-human entity get out of it?
indeed.
And it occurred
It's a
to
very good question.
me that something very possible here is that
Mm,
he feeds off of that energy,
mm,
and that there's something that happens with murdering a victim, and now this is almost like sustenance. It's the soup du jour. It's the
mm,
maybe even a delicacy for whatever this
mm,
entity is, to experience the fear and feeding off of that energy. And this is why he's in the capacity he is, because he's addicted to whatever this experience is, potentially feeding off of the negative energy that comes from his victims. Now, Mike,
yeah.
that would make sense because Mike is like, yeah, I was one of those guys and it was delicious, but I realized it was morally wrong, and
Mm,
therefore I decided I was no longer going to do that.
yeah.
Okay. Well, then that also says something to the potential storyline of other entities that are from maybe the same realm that Bob is, seeing what Bob has been doing all of this time and going, yeah, that looks delicious. We want to sit at this table
Mm,
too.
right.
Um, and I could see that as a definite direction that the story is going, which
Mm,
leads me now to my last point, which is, it seems to me, because we've had several references now to the Bookhouse Boys
yeah.
being a group of people that is not, this is just who it is at the present: Hawk, Ed, Truman, and whoever else. But whoever it was in the past that was part of the Bookhouse Boys Club, fighting an evil in Twin Peaks for a long time.
Mm,
And just like the scenario in the Twilight series between the werewolves and the vampires, the same kind of scenario where you've got the Illuminati, or you've got
mm,
some kind of good force fighting some kind of evil force in the world, and the general world is not aware of what is going
yeah.
on, but they see the
Absolutely.
after effects.
Yes.
And I'm thinking that maybe even unbeknownst to the current people that are in the Bookhouse Club Boys, the evil that they are fighting against is in fact these entities, and they're just
Mm,
now coming into the general knowledge of what this is and who they're fighting
yeah.
against. This final scene, which I absolutely loved, that Albert was in the final scene, that he was in the
Yeah.
room when Leland died, that now
Mm,
they're sitting in the forest going, oh, okay, well, this is kind of astonishing and amazing and incredulous, but okay. I guess
yeah.
this is what our scenario is now. We are truly
Mm,
fighting evil. And this
yeah.
doesn't have anything to do with murderers or people who are committing
Mm,
crimes or any of that. We are truly now on the path of good versus evil, and it's
yes.
something much bigger than the rest of us.
Yeah. As Cooper says, it's it's their job to stop it.
Right.
Yeah. So setting up for the you know, very much the second part of the saga from next week. One final thing I found interesting when they were interrogating Bob. We'd previously heard of reference from Gordon Cole about the incident with Cooper in Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what happened there, apart from he got injured and there was a little bit of a hullabaloo. How and in what way Bob is seemingly aware of that incident,
Mm-hmm.
um, which for a second very much took Cooper back, but then he very quickly gained his composure. Now, is this Bob has power to read minds or just pick up on vibes, or was he there? Does he have more of an association with Cooper than Cooper realizes? Um, we will have to wait and see.
Yeah. So my quick comment on that. I don't remember what it is. Might have even been in Star Trek or something. I think there was a reference to something in Star Trek or other stories. There was a scenario that was presented in whatever storyline I'm thinking of, where Jack the Ripper, the
mm,
famous murderer in the UK, London, was actually a man possessed, and that he committed
mm,
the murders that he did because he was possessed. And whatever story it is that I was thinking of, uh, that spirit had
mm.
continued long after. Maybe it was an X Files episode too. That
Yeah,
spirit that had possessed Jack the Ripper was continuing on through
yeah, yeah.
history and possessing other people to commit murders. So
Mm,
it also occurs to me that whatever this Bob entity is, clearly Leland stated that he was responsible for Teresa Banks's murder.
yeah.
Okay, so that clears that up as well. And everything else that has been in our current scenario and could be defined by the murders where the letter was put under the fingernail, those are all in our current scenario. But then there's also past scenarios that
Mm,
if Bob was either responsible for or present at or somehow knew of this incident in Pittsburgh where Cooper had a knife shoved in his belly, I guess, um,
mm,
then it also that's what referenced in my head this scenario in which whatever this entity is, maybe it's Bob or maybe it's other entities involved or something like that. It very possibly has been going on Earth for a long time and in capacities that we've never even considered.
mm.
So that's what I'm leaning towards now, is that there what we're going to be exploring now in this trumped up storyline is the stages of what occurred in the past and how that leads to the
Mm,
connections of today. And
indeed.
obviously, we're going to get much more information on who these entities are, what their motives are, and what that means for humanity, in addition to maybe the ultimate storyline, or maybe the third version of this storyline, which is the Bookhouse Boys being able to fight this evil, and will they succeed?
Mm,
But more importantly, the backstory on how we got here. Why is this happening in Twin Peaks of all places, and
mm,
maybe in other places around the country? You know,
mm,
and it just so happened that this path led Cooper here simply because he's doing his job and investigating things, and maybe there's other further connections we still have to find out about his former partner, and what his former partner is doing at the moment, and what his motives are, and what side he's going to fall on. Is he going to meet him again at some point?
mm.
You know, there's all these questions, but they're seemingly all leading in the same direction now,
Yeah.
which is, what is the resolution to this full-on bigger mystery that is predicated in the good versus evil battle.
Yes.
So it's nice
Absolutely.
it's nice to see kind of like all the questions start to align in the same direction.
Yeah. Yeah. The very interesting, very good insights there, Scotty. You be sure to keep all those with you. Urchins, before we wrap up there. Yeah, there was another addendum materials they released. They actually released some of Cooper's audio
Oh,
logs. I assume they got Kyle MacLachlan to actually narrate them. So it's got essentially, I guess, like I don't know if it's an actual book or an audio book. I'm not sure actually. I haven't heard or read these, so I don't know about them. I assume it's just stuff from like more of a focus on him as a character and his personal past. So I guess it's going to be like, oh, Diane, this day I did this, or
right.
maybe there's insight into what happened in Pittsburgh in those. I don't know. That's one thing that I've not managed to get hold of. But yeah, interesting. But yes, Urchins, good call there.
Okay, so two quick points to wrap up with, or three quick points.
Go
Uh
for it.
Bob, this seemingly random little statement, he's going to shuffle off to Buffalo.
Mm,
So uh, I'm assuming at some point we're going to see Buffalo come into the story. Two, Ben has been exonerated. His blood type was
mm,
wrong. So he will be released, obviously, I think, in the
yeah,
next episode. And now we will be dealing with the fallout of Ben being released from prison after being falsely accused.
yeah,
And Bob leaving Leland's body represented in this swirling red shadowy type
yeah,
flight through the woods, and ending in an owl being right in front of
yeah.
the camera.
The
We
owls are
still
not what they
have yet
seem.
really truly to define the owls and their role,
Mm,
and what that's going to apparently mean now for Bob's future. What is the
mm,
owl? I remember the first I don't scenario that was presented by the log lady of the
yeah,
owls flying around on the
mm,
night of Laura's murder. Maybe that
yeah.
represents these entities. The owls are not what they seem.
Yeah, I think you've hit on it there anyway. So I
Yeah.
might as well end. We might as well end with this. Yeah, I think you're right. I think again, my interpretation is, yes, the owls represent these entities, whether it's the good entities or the evil ones. That is
Could
another
be both.
representation
Yeah.
of them. Yeah. So them not being what they seem is just directly, you know, you are, you've seen an owl, but it's not. Maybe it's not actually an owl. Directly, and this again, not sure confirmed, but what I think, and that very end scene where we see that, I believe that essentially, maybe elsewhere, but specifically in Twin Peaks, for whatever reason, uh, owls make good hosts to possess for these spirits. So essentially, what I interpret that for scene is Bob, having been left kind of expelled, mostly of his own volition, but maybe not entirely because of the situation. He's left Leland, abandoned that host. For the time being, Bob has literally taken up residence in a random owl that is flying around. Uh, that's how I interpret it. Obviously, Bob is not going to be satisfied residing in an owl. He's going to be looking for another
Right,
human
yeah.
host at some point. So that is my interpretation of the owls are not what they seem.
My guess
So
at this
when you
point, my guess at this point is going to be Leo.
you reckon?
I
Well,
reckon.
he seems like an empty vessel at the moment, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Should we say? But we shall see. But yeah, I think that's pretty much everything.
Okay.
Yeah, a good resolution. I'm glad.
Yes.
I
Yes.
think
Very,
we're
very
yeah
satisfying
we're
episode.
yeah I think we're 17 out of 30 episodes through now, so we're making good progress. A lot more to see and experience. But thank you very much, Scotty. A pleasure as
Alrighty.
always. Urchins, thank you for joining us as always, sir. Pleasure to have you here. And I guess we'll reconvene same time next week for our next 2 episodes.
Alrighty. See you later.
All right, thank you, fellas. I'll see you later. Take care.
Bye.